Hey, what did you say? This is Boz at Men Speaking Out, and I am doing a part two of our last podcast, which was the housing crisis. But I got educated on that podcast by Mr. David Shabazz, and he had said it's not so much of a housing crisis, it's more of a housing shift. So, what I want to do today, I wanted to introduce my guests that I have. So, we want to continue the discussion actually, and I want to introduce my guests, and I'm going to introduce them in order of ladies first. And we have Tasha Herbert. Hello, Tasha. How are you?
Hello, I'm great. How are you?
I'm well. I'm well. Thank you. So, you mind telling the viewers a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Okay, I am a real estate broker. I have been in real estate since 2004. Um, and I love to sell homes. I love to make the American dream a reality and just help as many people as I can.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, Tasha. All right. Right after Tasha, we have Patria Capsule. Capsule. I'm sorry. I
Hi,
apologize.
that's okay. It's a difficult name.
Yes.
Patrina Kamsel from the Federal Savings Bank. I'm a vice president there. I've been in lending for the past 28 years.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Patricia. And we also with us we have Robert Lewis. Hello, Robert. How are you, sir?
Good. How you doing, sir?
Doing good. You mind telling the listeners a little bit about you and what you do?
Um, Basically have a small brokerage here in Indianapolis. I'm in my 20th year in real estate, and love, you know, helping clients with their dream of being homeowners. And me and David have helped plenty of people with situations where they didn't think that it was going to happen, and we try to make it happen for them.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you very much for joining us, sir.
Thank you.
All right, last but not least, we have David Shabazz. Mr. Shabazz, do you mind giving us our listeners a little bit about you, please?
Sure. Yeah, David Shabazz. I'm currently working with a builder. Also, I have my own new home marketing company as well. So, been in the business since about 2004. And just excited to be here, and I appreciate you giving me an opportunity to share my thoughts.
Awesome, awesome. Well, once again, I want to thank you all real quickly here. I got some heavy hitters on this podcast, and we're going to get down to nitty gritty. And I believe we had a little talk before the podcast got started, and I believe I was told a lot has changed. It's very interesting. If I'm going to actually use the words that were shared with me. And Ms. Patricia Campsell, could you please tell me what's so interesting about the market today?
The market today is really the difference is that we've been spoiled, and I'll use that word because we've had interest rates extremely low for a very, very long time, many years. We have not even come close to what the real rates should be. And now that we see an increase in rates now, people are thinking, oh my gosh, the rates are really high. They're not high. They're actually really good still. And great opportunities are still out there. I think it's a mind shift for people just because we've been seeing rates for a very, very long time, really extraordinary low.
Okay, gotcha, gotcha. Well, thank you very much. I want to take a few seconds about maybe I'll give this man about 25, 30 seconds or so. Introduce him, Mr. Stephen Locke. How are you, Mr. Locke?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. If you wouldn't
Good.
mind sharing a little bit to the listeners about who you are and what you do, and so that way we can say, we can confirm the heavy hitters on the call.
No, my name is Steve Locke. I work for Davis Homes. Me and David Shabazz actually work together. I work on the on your lot side, so we kind of start from the dirt all the way up to the finished product. Been in the industry on the real estate side and on the builder side for about 20 years. So yeah, excited to be here and answer any questions I can.
Okay, awesome, awesome. Thank you very much. Well, before you jumped on the podcast, Steve, we were just talking about how interesting the real estate market is and how these interest rates appear to be high to some, but low to others.
Sure.
And so the misconception is that they're actually not real high at all. This is actually very, very good in comparison to where they were in 2011 and years prior to that.
Yes.
So why is that such a confused thought process and people think these are so high?
I mean, Ms. Campbell answered it perfectly. We were spoiled. I mean, but this is actually where they should be. And back then we were doing more arms, for folks who wanted to get their payment down. We do it like a 7-1 arm, which is they'd have a low rate for 7 years, and then they'd have to refinance, and that's how they would get the lower rate. So I mean, bottom line is spoiled,
Right, right,
and
right.
people have been excited. So you had this mad rush to buy a house at 2.5 or 3.1 and things of that nature, and then all of a sudden, a couple years later, we're back at where it should be. So
Gotcha,
it,
gotcha.
it, it is exactly where it should be. It would be nice to get it back to where it was, but I mean, this is where we are today.
It kind of helps slow the market just a little bit
Absolutely.
with multiple offers on these houses, because there isn't that many houses out there, because there's a large pool of buyers out there looking for pretty much the same thing. So, I wish that we can have multiple houses of the same, so that way everyone can have one.
Sure.
But you remember the 2-1 buy down programs?
Yes, I do.
Back then, yeah, where you can actually
Nehemiah.
right down the Nehemiah program, all of that. I'm glad that we don't have those programs anymore, because a lot of people that had them really didn't even understand them, and they ended up being foreclosed on. Like, those were not good loans.
No.
And
Well, Steve, you said something about what so a 7-1 loan. What's it called? A 7?
So it's an arm. So it's
So-
a arm. So for customers who want to get back kind of basically to that lower rate again, they have rates out there right now where you can have a rate of, I think the arms are going for 4%, somewhere around there, and you can have that rate for 7 years, but then you'd have to refinance to a locked in rate. Some people don't like arms because they change after so many years, but if you're looking to find a low rate, that's the option that a lot of these banks are offering. Now, not all banks, but a few of the banks that Davis Homes is working with is offering that product.
But couldn't that potentially hurt someone if they don't maintain their good credit score? So they may have came in 7 years with a low score or a low interest rate, but if they don't maintain their credit over that period of time, and when it comes time to refinance, obviously one or two things are going to happen, right? They're either going to be able to refinance to either a rate at what they have or lower if their credit is A1, or after that 7-year itch, basically the rate's going to jump.
Well, here's the good thing is, so let's say you're in you're in it for the 3rd year and the rates drop. You can refinance. But you're absolutely right. It is a risk with most things that are out there that we're offering that are good for now. There is a risk to it. But the plus is the rates go back down again in next year or the year after. You can refinance it.
Gotcha.
So,
gotcha.
It just depends on how the bank sets it up. But go ahead, Ms. Campbell.
I really think that it's really still unnecessary. I mean, the rates are still really good. It's not like we're at 8% or 9%. Yeah. If you guys remember, prior to 9/11, we were talking about double digits in interest rates.
Yep.
And that's why all the ARMs and all these other products came about, to make those payments affordable, quote unquote affordable, but they weren't looking at the long run where what would rates do after that shift. And when rates started going higher and higher, and then those 3-arm rates or 4-arm rates, 5-year arm rates, 7-year arm rates were coming due, and the rates kept climbing, then it was putting people out of their home, right? Because they couldn't afford it any longer. We're not even near that right now, but we haven't recovered really since 9/11. Our rates have not come close to an 8% interest rate or even a 7.25%. Prior to COVID, I think we were just climbing into the 5s.
Yep.
And then COVID hit and boom, we came right back down.
Yeah.
We're still recuperating.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is for people that option is for, I'm going to give you a perfect example. I had a couple that was purchasing a house, and they started out where the rates were at like 2 and 3%. By the time we were able to close on them, which has been about a month or so, the rates had jumped up. Well, it priced them out. So with the new rate, they could no longer afford the house, or the payment was too high for where they wanted to stay. So they panicked. I said, well, hey, let me introduce you to this banker, and they have a special rate that you can use. So it saved the deal. So in certain situations, it is a good option. Some people panic, some people are freaking out, and this is the option I offer them, and it happens a lot, So that's why I kind of brought that up. But you're absolutely right. It's just for people who are panicking and stressing and used to this 3%, So
we have quite a few portfolio products that are ARMs as well. And actually, they're pretty good when it comes to people who need something a little different, that maybe they don't fit into the box, right? That don't fit into all the criteria necessarily. Maybe they have 1 year of self-employed tax returns, 1 year that's bad and 1 year that's really good. And their business is growing, and we can see it. Their deposits and everything are making sense, where we can put them in an ARM product for now until they're able to get out of it later. I mean, it's not a bad product. Don't get me wrong. I think ARM products are really good, but I think they're set for certain individuals for certain needs.
Yep.
Okay, cool. I'm going to shift a little bit. This is somewhat of like the Steve, you're on your lot kind of guy, and I need I appreciate the perspective from everyone on the podcast. Land is expensive, right? Land's expensive. You're looking at land, suburbia, Indianapolis. I mean, you're talking lots that are ranging from 200 grand on, to, I think I've seen roughly a lot that was like $500,000. I've seen that. So if you tackle that on top of the house the person once built, and then of course there's some lot excavation fees, right? You have to get the lot ready and the sewage and so forth and level it off. And that's probably another additional, $70,000 or $100,000 to do that too. Now the house is not even built yet, right? So now you're really, dipping into, technically speaking, $1 million home, because lots I'm finding, I'm looking online, that's very hard to come by now, especially in the city of Indianapolis. I can't speak for other locations, obviously, but it's really a challenge. Now, Mr. Lewis, are you located in Indianapolis, my friend?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so definitely you've seen the dilemma, especially when someone wants to get a house built, correct? Yes. So what do you do? I mean, how can this is kind of a Tasha to you too. I mean, because you're a real estate agent. So what do you do? Do you continue to do searches for that customer to try to find them a lot that they can afford? Or do you say, hey, listen, it's probably best you get a pre-existing house because it's just not much out there in the inventory?
Well, for me, I deal with more pre-existing. I have a few clients that, when things were getting crazy, I would suggest, hey, you might be a client that needs to build because you're not willing to, be in a bidding war. You don't, there are certain clients that just refuse to pay over. It was foreign for them to, come to closing with 20 grand over. And I'm, would tell them, hey, you should build, for the price you're possibly going to be paying. Why don't you build? Now, the problem would be the areas. A lot of individuals didn't want to go out in the townships or outside of 465 or in certain townships. So if they would get over that dilemma, then I would have a good client that would build. Now, of course, over time, even the new builds started being a problem because you had to bid on the lot. You had to come in and hopefully get in certain price ranges. In the fours and fives. Those lots were becoming premium lots where it wasn't a premium lot, to where you have to, pay over. Like you said, the land started being more. So the builders started getting, privy to what was going on in the market and say, hey, we're going to take advantage of it too. We're going to pay, this client's going to pay more for these lots. So I think everybody got hit. I mean, the investors, I think, in my opinion, are the ones that's winning right now. Certain sellers. I mean, I just put a house on the market and, we started the process this is a client I've been working with for years, and we thought about it. about a year and a half ago. And, when I first looked at it, I said, I think you can go for 230. And just recently put on the market and they got 287 from a builder, meaning from an investor, paid 30 grand over list price.
Wow.
And I had buyers for it in my my pipeline, but I couldn't even let them compete for it because I knew what my sellers wanted. So I think all the way around, whether it's high land or a person, that want to build now can't build, maybe they only could, go 250. Now that same house after a year is now 300. So that priced them out. Now the interest rate's going up. And for our uneducated buyers that never bought a home, is their first home, that's why the rate is high. I mean, I know at 99 when I first bought my first home, my rate was 9% VA, and I didn't know what to compare it to. But I heard that my uncle, who also had a VA loan, his loan was 19%. They got it in the early 80s.
Wow.
So once you compare that, I'm like, oh, I'm doing well. Now, of course, when the rates went down, your payment goes down. You can afford a more, better house. You go to the next house. Oh, the rates are lower, so I can afford this. But for first-time home buyers that have nothing to compare to, or there's no one in their family that can say, oh, when I bought my house, it was this. This is, foreign for them. So a higher interest rate is devastating.
Wow. 19%. Wow. I can't imagine. So Tasha, what's been your experience, when you have actually dealt with a basically a pre-existing or, basically getting a custom home built, with a Davis or whomever, when customers find themselves, paying for the lot, paying for the excavation fees, then of course getting the house built, then getting the house customized, right? Because they want to have certain lights and they want to have certain floors and so forth. And all that does is just add on to the price of the home. They look up like, wow, I'm spending 800,000 and I really came in wanting to spend $5. So how do you tell your customer, well, it's not so bad, or do you tell them, do you use the same philosophy Robert does, and this is maybe you need to look somewhere else that's more affordable?
Yeah, kind of similar. Because in the beginning, for my buyers, I like to have I do like a little presentation for them because I want to know exactly what are your must-haves, what must you have in this home, and what can you be without. And so if we're looking at like a new build, because I tell them now, you can ask for everything under the sun, but please know you're gonna have to end up coming out of pocket for something because that mortgage is gonna go all the way up. If you trying to build your dream home and you want everything in there because you're gonna pay for every little thing, including the doorbell. You see, when you're building, and I just make sure that they either they have a lot of money in their reserve, because they're going to need, when I say like a lot of money, let's at least start off with 10 grand to have on the side, because if you're going to want all these additional options, you may have to actually pay for them out of pocket to keep your mortgage where you want it to be at. So going into it, I just let them know, like, you want to stay in this particular price range, that we need to make sure that we focus on the things that are most important to you. Mm-hmm. And then for the other things that are least important, but you would like to have, then, we can talk to a builder and see if you can just make payments on certain things that you want to have in there. So then that way you can have it, or wait until after you move in, and you can always make those upgrades, as you live in there over the years, instead of trying to get it all at once.
Gotcha. Wow.
Yeah. And then as far as like with the existing home, I always tell them it's like you're gonna get 80% of what you want in an existing home. So
you're lucky.
Be open, to when you're going out there looking at someone else's home. You might want to go in there and change the paint colors and things like that, but that doesn't mean, oh yeah, I get to knock off $2,000 because I don't like the paint in there. Because a lot of times they like to break it down. This is my experience with some buyers. They're just like, well, you know what? Because I got to paint, they need to take some money off this house. It normally doesn't work like that. Yeah, it doesn't work like that. And then they always ask me about like the first time home buyers program. And I understand that a lot of, realtors would use that, as pulling them in, willing them in. So now people thinking like, oh my God, I can buy a house with no money. This isn't that market. You're going to have some money if you're going to buy a home. There's no such thing as you're going to move into a house without no money. And so I have to go in a lot of times and explain to them that you still got to have your closing costs. Sellers nowadays are not willing to pay your closing costs.
Yeah.
They're going to go with that clean offer to get it. They want you to waive the inspection, but I tell them, I say, you can still get this house as is, but still have your inspection, and we're going to note that in there for informational purposes. But a lot of people don't also understand that when you do the as is addendum and apply that with your purchase agreement, that it's still a protection for the buyer. Because if you're not happy about the furnace is going to be out, or you need a new roof, you can actually walk away and not have to say to the seller, can you fix this? You can do it as a courtesy, but you don't have to, so it's just pretty much educating them on, what they can and cannot do. And also like with the appraisal gaps, because I understand, everybody's like, oh yeah, well, I have $7,500 towards appraisal gap, or 20 grand towards appraisal gap, and blah, blah. Well, a lot of buyers that require down payment assistance, a lot of those loans do not even allow you to be able to have money for those appraisal gaps. And guess what? They're the ones that are getting hit the hardest, because they're getting outbidded from the others.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And a lot of them are still out here, unless you actually find that one seller that, maybe they wrote them a letter and it was touching, and they're like, you know what? I want this offer because I connected with this buyer, or, so I've had that experience too.
No, hold on for a second. Time out. Write them a letter.
Yeah.
Write them a letter.
Yes.
That used to work. That used to work. I
really want your home. I love the purple paint and everything else. Sign and send. Write them a letter. Wow, that's new on me. I guess I'm a little old school. But I want to. This kind of is a good segue into the actual next subject I want to share, because they were talking about pre-existing homes, right? Writing folks letters, as you would say, Tasha. So this is a question for Mr. Shabazz there. Okay. Depersonalizing your home. You're a seller, and you have obviously people coming in to look at your home, and you may have some cultural artifacts up and pictures of the family, and things that represent you. Is it when your real estate agent tells you, well, you might need to take down these pictures, you might need to put that that picture of so-and-so down, and you might need to take down those curtains, or take off that kente cloth, or whatever, because you're trying to sell the home, and is that difficult for, in your experience, is that difficult for an actual seller to do, especially if you got multiple showings going on, right? So you're constantly down and up, changes it. Your home is who you are, right? It's an extension of yourself. What's been your experience?
Well, I mean, someone who's owned several homes, and I make no doubt, I want to make no mistake that I understand who I am. I understand my background and my culture and my heritage, and that's all important to me. I also understand it's a business transaction, and I'm a businessman. I make business moves, right? We have to understand that as well. But I'm not too much worried, particularly in this market, about a buyer coming along. I'm more worried about an appraiser who is going to discriminate in some way, shape, or form, and not give me the value because he may see an African American family on the wall. Those are the types of things that we really need to be focused on, because I hear more and more of those types of stories from African Americans, Hispanic, people of color. They tell me, oh man, I didn't get what I thought I was going to get, or as far as appraisal. They get a lot of low appraisals where you may not necessarily see that in particular areas. And it's not necessarily that I'm picking on a particular group of people. I just think in reality, this is where we are in America. and we have appraisers that have shown exactly who they are. And I think I would, if I'm taking down anything, it's not because I'm afraid of the people that are going to walk and not want my home. I'm just more concerned about a biased appraiser who may not necessarily want to give me the value that I deserve or that my home is worth because of who the homeowner is.
Well, shouldn't appraisers be fair though, right? Is there like some sort of code of ethics that you have in the real estate market?
I understand. Once again, I understand who I am, my culture, my heritage, my background, and the history of America. So and and some people are not. They don't play fair. They have their biases, and that's just the world we live in. So we have to take all those things into account. Not everybody isn't like everybody on this call. You know what I mean? On this podcast, we all care about and want to see people grow, prosper, and develop into successful people. Some folks don't believe that.
Gotcha. Patria, by you being in the mortgage business, and of course, have you seen this same sort of inequities? When it comes to people of color, with appraisers, while a certain majority gets this and a certain minority gets this, and it's like, wait a minute, now this is the same house, same square footage, they're 2 or 3 blocks up the street. They should be appraised for.
Well, I don't know who owns the properties or anything like that, but I do see a difference. And if there's supposed to be checks and balances when an appraiser is done based on comps and square footage and cost, why can I have two appraisers appraise one home and come up with 2 different values? Yeah. And sometimes it's very different. You could be talking about $10,000 in difference. How is that possible? So why isn't there better regulation on these appraisers? Because we're constantly seeing it right now, especially with the shift in the market where we are having homes are asking, our buyers are offering more on properties and stuff like that. And I can understand at the beginning where it's hard because the adjustments aren't there and everything like that. But as the adjustments have been happening, we're still having an issue with appraisals, values, and particular areas. Consider even think about our Fountain Square area. Look how fast you have these beautiful brand new homes coming up, and you have rehab homes there. And sometimes we come up with appraisal problems. And I'm like, why? You have all the comps, everything is there. How come I have to have a deal with an appraisal issue when the comps are there? So I think better regulation on these appraisers, and we've been seeing price gouging too, because at one point we were the turnaround time for these appraisers were 4 weeks, 5 weeks, and they were increasing their prices and for no reason. I'm like, what do you mean increasing your prices for what? What are you doing different? Nothing. Same report, same everything. So it's really tough. It's hard to figure out where their regulation stands.
So I have a question. You have appraisals on one hand, and you got home inspections on another. So these are 2 different things, correct?
2 different things, right? Yeah. Your home inspector is there to determine defects, right? Large, small, whatever, maybe maintenance, help you with some maintenance, so that the buyer understands what's going on with the property. Your appraiser is there for value. It's there to determine what they believe the value of the home is based on other homes in the area that are similar.
Okay, gotcha. Well, I want to read a report to you guys, if that's okay. This is from the Freddie Mac website, of course, and it says here, Freddie Mac newly released analysts of more than 12 million appraisals between 2015 and 2020. And it provides evidence of the racial and ethnic divide. According to the report, only 7.4% of appraisals in majority white neighborhoods came below a property's contract value. That figure jumped up to 12.5% for Blacks and 15.4% for Latino. And their homes were more likely, twice likely to be undervalued compared to those in white areas. Now that right there, the data don't lie, right? It goes back to what you're saying, David, around, how This is America, basically.
One things that frees people from you know economic and financial hardship is home ownership. That can free somebody. I mean, you look at people that have sold their homes here in the last 18 months, made 100,000, 80,000, 90,000 on their homes. They've never seen that kind of money before in their life. And here comes Joe, the appraiser, wants to try to control that, not giving somebody the value for the home and when for their home when one right next door was $20,000 more. What gives them the right, the gall, even the thought to even do something like that? And those are the types of people, man, that I love going after. That I love paying money for attorneys to go after those kind of people. And a lot of people think I'm crazy and all that. That's fine, whatever. But I love that kind of stuff, man, because I want to be able, when they put me in the grave, they're going to say that guy fought for everybody. I fought for the small guy. And that's what you want, man. I mean, we all do very well for ourselves, but we got to fight for the small people. And I think those types of things that, that I hold dear. And I think that we need to go after people who don't do that. And it's hard to do that when you don't have all the information, so that's why you just have to keep your ear to the ground. I talk to people like Robert Lewis and Tasha and just different folks that I talk to, and they say, man, this appraiser was low. When I was building homes on the east side, all of our appraisals came back low. Every single last one of them. For about a year, we had to fight to get the value for the home. Why is that? These are brand new homes, and it was unfortunate for some of those, and some of them we had to bite the bullet on. So why does that happen? But I didn't have that problem in Noblesville, or I didn't have that problem in other areas. You know what I mean? So you tell me. We all know what it is.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I that's definitely, I didn't think about it that way, right? You didn't think about, a Noblesville, a Carmel, a Zionsville in comparison to a East Side, a Lawrence, or not saying anything negative against Lawrence Township whatsoever, but certain neighborhoods that wouldn't appraise, or a certain demographic wouldn't get the right appraisal or the proper appraisal just because of that demographic, right? So let's shift it a little bit. I mean, thank you. That's actually, you put a lot on my mind. This is for you, Steve. I want to kind of start with foreclosures, okay, and talk about the impact of what does a foreclosure do to a person's credit, right? What does a foreclosure, does it stop you from being able to purchase a home in the future? Does it give you you gotta wait a few years and then you can do it again? I mean, how does that work in your world?
It's been a long time since I've dealt with foreclosures. Some of the laws may have changed, or they could be the same, but from my experience, I believe if I'm not mistaken, it was 2 years. You had to wait 2 years before you can buy a new house on a foreclosure. Now, I could be wrong, could have been 3 years, but I know you had to wait a certain amount of years before you can buy a new house.
I see Robert shaking his head. Go ahead, Robert.
Yeah, I think it's bankruptcy for 2.
I'm sorry. Okay.
And as foreclosure, I think it's 7.
Is it 7? Okay.
For
I knew it had. I knew some rules that changed, and I couldn't remember what it was.
Things just changed.
Yeah.
I think assets has something to do with. I think FHA might be more forgiving than conventional, and I can be wrong.
No, you're right. No, it is 2 years on the bankruptcy, and then the foreclosure is 7 years.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
it's been a long time. That question caught me off guard.
Let's cap it off. Patria, you're in the mortgage space. Could you chime in and give us your feedback on that?
Well, with foreclosures, we haven't seen a whole lot of it. At least I haven't seen much of it. I mean, prior years we saw it, but we saw it because there was tons of people looking to purchase or purchased homes that really they couldn't afford. They were put in wrong products. They were put in. They were over budgeted, right? And that's why you saw the foreclosures. Now, I don't see many. I haven't seen many at all. I don't think that's the issue now because the rates are really low. The homes are extremely affordable. And unless somebody put them in a wrong product where their rate is going to go up, which shouldn't have ever happened because until now, the rates started increasing now, right?
Mhm.
I think here, if you were to have a home and let's say you can't pay, let's say you lost your job, sell it. Sell it. You make money, right? Because the market is telling you, you just put it up for an hour in the market and right, it's sold. Especially a property, even if it's a distressed property.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
tell me
Yeah.
if I'm wrong, David and Tasha, but right, even a distressed property right now in this market, it's going to get sold.
Yeah, and according to the Urban Institute, in 2010 there were 2.9 million foreclosures. That was like kind of an all-time high, and that was in 2010. 2.9 million. In the first quarter of 2022, we only had 78,000.
Yeah.
So that's a huge difference, from 2010 to now. And based on some of that data, the lending practices have tightened so much. That's why you see that huge difference between foreclosures then and foreclosures now.
Absolutely. I know I dealt with a lot of return clients that I helped when I first got my license, and especially when the home building, boom was big, and from 2003 to, to the market crash in middle '07, you had a lot of builders, getting a lot of land and building and doing those 2-1, 3-1 buy downs and doing those, buy your rates. The builders were buying the rates. The builders were paying the closing costs, the down payments to do Nehemiah. People were coming in literally, and I was in financing then too. I did both. And I literally was getting people 100% financing with 550 credit scores, been on the job 6 months, stuff like that. Just unbelievable stuff. And those same people, again, like you were saying earlier, if your credit wasn't, if you still wasn't working on your credit when that rate changed, you was SOL. And then on a new build, the property taxes got assessed. So then you get hit on that.
Yeah.
And so I had a few clients that lost their homes and still, over time came back to me and said, "Hey, I'm ready again." And we had to look at, their credit because of their foreclosure.
Wow.
And, and the only way they could go is FHA.
Wow.
At the time. So they were a little bit more lenient on that. But you still had to jump through hoops, get this paperwork, get this documentation, whatever. Now, I think because of the lending practices now, we should not have those issues. And people come to me all the time when they, contemplating buying. Well, what, do you think it's going to bust like it did in 07, 08? And I'm like, it shouldn't. I think we should have learned from that. It shouldn't, but as long as you're not one of those people,
Gotcha. I just have a question for you. I'm sorry, Dave. You want to say something?
I was just saying lending is tightened up so much that I don't foresee that. And then all the economists that do these different forecasts, 37% of the people that were in forbearance program that started back in 2020, 37% of them were paid in full. So they're no longer in a forbearance program. So there's no foreclosures there. 44.6% of the people worked it out or still in a repayment plan, a positive repayment plan. So that's good. But only 18% of the people that are started those forbearance programs back in 2020 are in trouble. Only 18%. Yeah, and and that speaks to the type of loans that they're in, their type of finance, and it speaks somewhat to the economy.
Well, I guess my question is from the actual, from the seller side of it, right? So, if you have a home in your neighborhood or a couple homes, 'cause at some point in time, this was the case, that were in foreclosure, and you're trying to sell your home. Now, of course, they do comps in these areas so they can get a price of the home to kind of average out to see what that home can go for. And Tasha, you've been a real estate agent. I want to ask you this: do you find it challenging when you list one of your customers' homes or your clients' homes? And I don't know if you have experienced this or not, but this, you can tell me horror stories, you can tell me something pleasant, whatever, but as long as it's accurate. Have you realized that selling a home for what it's truly valued should be versus a home that's foreclosed in the same neighborhood, does that have an impact or direct impact to the selling of that property for your client?
It really depends on how many foreclosures is in that neighborhood. When you're comparing your comps and things like that, because when we're looking at it from a comp, I usually go out about 2 miles, like a 2 mile radius, and I compare apple to apple. So if this was a ranch style home and I'm listing a home that's a 2 story that has more square footage, it's not going to have that much of a bearing on that home because I'm not comping per se to that one. It's going to be for like the other likely, the other homes that are more like that. But if you're in a neighborhood where there are a lot of homes that have been foreclosed on, then yes, that home is going to be affected. It's because of where the value is going to be at in that neighborhood because of so many foreclosures, you
Yeah.
know.
Now, in this market, we should not have that problem anyway. You know,
Exactly.
appraisal is going to only
Right.
go out 6 months, and this market has been, you know, very active. But I know a few years back, when a client wanted to sell, and they did, it wasn't a neighborhood where it was hit hard for foreclosures. You had to hopefully get an educated or a seasoned appraiser to understand the circumstances where they would not consider, or if they use that distressed property, they do mark it as this was a distressed property, or the reasoning why they had to go outside the neighborhood to get the comp.
Gotcha.
I know a lot of appraisers started doing that because if that subdivision was hit hard, because we had, some subdivisions, probably 80% of the homes went foreclosed because of those builders that were biting their rates. And then, the property taxes got assessed. So, and of course, you got a lot of investors that came in and bought those homes and became rental properties. And so when I had a client that wanted to sell in that situation, I had to try to hope to get an educated appraiser or at least help them with that and say, hey, you know, these are the comps that I found outside, and this is the why this list price is this or whatever. So I knew I had to do that a few years back, but now we should not have that problem at all.
Gotcha. So I kind of want to I have one more subject I want to bring up, and then I want to wrap it up. I guess I'm looking at the market today, and this is renting. Renting has become very expensive for renters, right? And I'm looking at places downtown and just kind of looking at the market, and it's like, wow, people are really stinging folks for small areas and paying thousands of dollars for maybe a 2 bedroom, which of course, obviously, that's a house payment, right? That's a mortgage, an investment.
Yeah.
What can we do, or what advice can you guys offer our listeners to get them out of that rental mentality, right? To get them into more of an ownership mentality, right? I mean, what can you share to make someone say, you know what, you're right. I need to start looking at buying a home instead of renting one.
Me and David had a conversation last month or so about the same thing and even David said it earlier, that a lot of times home ownership is one of the biggest assets or investment a person of color will have the ability to do. It's a mindset. It changes your mindset when you get the ability to become a homeowner. But I have clients that I've worked with for years. They're still my pipeline. I still have a portal for them to like houses and all that. And of course, they're way over. I mean, the housing, the price has gone over than what they should have got a couple of years ago. But and I tell them when I reach out to them, number one, you're making that landlord rich. You're paying a mortgage regardless of what you're renting or you owning. You are paying a mortgage. You're paying somebody else's mortgage, or you're putting money in somebody else's pocket. And I tell them too, look at how much equity you would have had if you would have bought when I say you should have bought. And we're talking about, I have another gentleman, I helped him get a house. Matter of fact, it was a client of David's that could not build. And they was like, hey, can you help this family out? Because they just don't have the resources to be able to build. And I said, yeah, I'll try to find them a house. They did not want this house. And I told them, you need to you start being a homeowner, and then let's go back to David in a couple of years and build that house. Do you know that house is over 150,000 more than what they bought for it in 2.5 years ago?
Wow.
And this is a house they didn't want.
Wow.
So imagine if they would have kept renting, they would not have this opportunity to have that type of money and now possibly go back to David and build a house.
Wow.
A great equalizer, right?
Yeah, it really is.
What about you, Patricia? What do you think the mindset? How can we change the mindset of individuals like that?
It's telling people, and actually I just had this conversation with a young couple who was limited, right? The rates are going up, limited income. And I said, stop looking, because they wanted their dream home. They wanted the dream home right off the bat. And I was like, no, it's okay. Think about investing. This is your investment. Stop thinking of it as your dream home, just your investment. This is your investment to get you started, get you out of renting, start paying yourself for something instead of paying somebody else. I said, you don't have to be here forever. 6 months, a year, 2 years, sell it. Buy something else and keep moving up and keep using that investment into your next future home, or rent it out, start earning some income for yourself and buy your next home. Your income should be going up every year. You're doing really well now. Why would it go, in the opposite direction? Stop paying other people to live. Pay yourself. And at first she didn't like the idea, and then came back and said, you know what? You're absolutely right. I need to stop renting. I said, exactly. You just need to stop renting. That should be the key thing.
Gotcha. Do you, and this is a question I'm going to ask you, Steve. Do you think that, and Tosh, you both, or either one of you two, do you think that individuals here, that we haven't been, and I say we, I mean people as a whole, have not been taught the true value of money? Right? The true value of money, right? Not, I get something, I spend it, because we have a microwave mindset, right? We want it right now, right now, right now. We don't want to wait and let things marinate. We want it, instant, right? So like you were saying earlier, Patricia, you were saying, she didn't like what you were saying if we told them to wait, right? But eventually, that's the path forward for them to go. So I guess my question to you two is that when you see people, who don't want to wait, who don't like either wait to get a house built or don't want to wait to get their credit up, or their submit applications with 500 credit scores and want a $300,000 home. I don't know if that's possible today or not, but I'm just putting it out there. But you said, no, you've got to pay off some bills. You've got to, close this card. You've got to pay off this car. You've got to, consolidate. Do they feel offended by hearing that type of lingo that you guys are sharing with the customers?
I haven't had anyone that felt offended by that. I mean, they find it to be pretty helpful. And the other thing is just being able to have your lenders too that can go in and just give them that time out, speak with them about how long will it be for them to be able to get into that home. So if you pay off this debt by this month, then, you can be able to start, building or buying your home by this particular date. So just kind of giving them that timeline, because a lot of people are visual. So right. If they can see it, then they can believe it. They're like, okay, cool. They're already getting hyped up about it, because now they know that in 4 months, I'll be able to buy a house if I go ahead and stick to this plan.
Right. So, key word, stick to the plan. Then everybody's disciplined.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've tried that a million times in my house. Hey, you save your money, you can buy this. No, Dad, I got it. You save your money, you can buy it. Then everybody's disciplined. So that's the key word right there, being disciplined. So what about coaching, right? Coaching somebody through this whole process, right? Because sometimes it takes a couple of years, right, for people to actually get into a home. So what about that 24-month coaching, check-in, post-check, or however you want to word it, say, hey, just checking in, making sure, we are on target, what's this new bill popping up? What's this new, purchase you just did, you know we're trying to get you into a home. Why are you still buying stuff? Why are you still? Do you want the home or do you or don't you? Right?
Yeah, because sometimes I understand that life happens. And it's interesting that you brought up that question because I just had a buyer and she said, well, my engine went out. I didn't have no choice but to go out and buy another car. But the car that she chose to buy, is really nice. And then now it made her debt to
Yeah.
income much smaller than what it would have been. So what would
Yeah.
have been wrong with finding you a cash car and going forward? And so now we have to work on getting her other things paid off so then that way she can be able to afford the house. So we're waiting.
So
Yeah,
now you
you
got to
got
start the coaching process all over again.
yeah.
Right. We do a lot of coaching. I mean, you talked about, sticking to the plan and everybody on this panel today does that. We all do it. We sit down with people and map out, hey, look, if you take care of X, Y, and Z, if you can get this credit card under control, and let's see some consistent pay history here. Or we may even say, hey, you need to open up a couple secured cards. And we give them the ones that we recommend that they open up. It's all a plan. We let them know it's not overnight. It's not going to happen overnight. You didn't get yourself into this mess overnight, right? So, but we can show you and give you a plan, and we'll tell them if you do exactly this here, if you do exactly A, B, C, and D, you will be a homeowner.
Yeah.
If you don't do these things, then maybe you're just not ready yet.
Yeah.
Yep, or delaying the process.
Yeah, I think the initial contact when you tell them something like, "Oh, you're going to have to wait 6 months or a year," they get discouraged, right? Right away. Oh, forget it. Oh, it's just not for me. And you're like, no. If you don't do it, because you're going to have to do it regardless, right?
Regardless. Yeah.
This country is run on credit. So to get anything good, great rates, great options, you have to have good credit. And I always tell them, look, either you fix it now, because here I'm showing you on my screen what you need to do, and otherwise you're going to be back here next year, and we're going to be having the same conversation.
And even more.
And your neighbor is going to own a home because they're going to follow through.
Mm-hmm.
Or their cousin that they envy
Yeah.
does. And I use that example all the time, especially if I have a client that knows somebody that was a previous client, and I tell them, are they better than you? I use a little philosophy with coaching. When I coach basketball, I tell them, I can't want it more than you. You have to want this. If we get a game plan together and you don't follow it, and I see that I want it more than you, then there's a problem. Yeah, I would have loved to see you in the house, but if you don't want it more than me, hey, I'm going to take my time and energy with a client that really wants, that wants it. And I can tell clients that really want it. When they really want it, I'll go hard for them. The ones that, I can just tell. I've been in the game too long to know when a person is giving me fluff and the person really wants it. So the ones that really want it, I'll go in for them.
Yeah, it's reciprocated.
Say again.
And we reciprocate that
Absolutely.
that passion, that love, and we want to see our clients be successful, and we try to give them those tools. I've seen Robert sit down with folks, and Steve and Patrita sit down with folks and give them that knowledge, because really at the end of the day, that's what we're doing. We're giving them the knowledge that they missed somewhere along the line, and they're able to take that and share it with their kids. That's generational wealth, is knowledge. Those are the types of things that we're all a part of, and that I'm very proud to do what we do every day.
Right on. Well, I definitely appreciate you guys taking time out your busy schedules to jump on this podcast. I know I'm the smallest person here with a room full of virtual giants in front of me in this real estate market, and I'm honored. And I want to say thank you very much. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you.
Yes. You're very welcome. You're all very welcome, as well. But once again, this is Men Speaking Out. And when we talk to reveal, not to conceal. And today we were revealed a lot of information in the housing market around foreclosures, definitely around appraisals, So real quickly here, before we close, I kind of want to talk about appraisals. One time I want to go around the virtual room, and I would like for you all to share in a few words or less, what should individuals look for when it comes to finding a good appraiser for their home?
Well, what we do know is that unless you hire them for yourself, the lender, is in control of that appraiser. I mean, they put it out there, and I could be wrong, but my understanding now. Now, when I did lending back in, a few years back, I could call the appraiser and say, "Hey, can you do this appraisal for me? I need it tomorrow. I need it, whatever."
Not anymore.
It's not anymore.
It's not.
It's in a system now. It goes out there, and I guess the fastest appraiser grabs it, or I could be wrong, but that's how it's explained to me now, that it just goes into,
A pool.
a pool,
Yeah,
and
it's a random selection now.
Yeah, so we don't even have a lot of control, or a lot of appraisers are so arrogant that they're offended if we reach out to them.
Wow.
Yeah, because I know I have reached out to them, especially like for my listings, and and when I know that we're priced right and I've done my comps right, I'm like, hey, I left some comps for you. I had one appraiser say, well, I know my job, I don't have to look at your comps, and I'm like, well, I'm just trying to help out, just in case, because I really need for it to, comp out at this and what have you. But yeah, we have no control over the appraiser that comes out, that when the bank send them out. And a lot of times, the bank, they're dealing with third party when they're sending it out.
So individual like myself, I was selling my home or I was buying a home, I couldn't hire my own appraiser to do the job. I would have to go through some sort of pool.
That appraisal will be for you
only for you.
That would be for you.
Yeah, that appraisal is not going to stick to your home.
And then remember what I said before, your appraiser that you hired on your own can't be used, nor the value can be guaranteed, because you have two different people doing their own math to decide what the value is.
And there's some sort of bias could be within that.
Right.
Yeah, as well. Gotcha. Keep it honest, keep it clean, keep it simple.
It's unless there's better regulation on those appraisers, there's no way. I mean, I'm sorry, but my idea is, if you're using math to determine value, then why can't two appraisers go in and come up with the same value? It doesn't make sense, right?
Gotcha. So to cap it off, David or Steve, what can you share with the actual audience about appraisals, and how should they work for the client themselves?
Well, I think that it kind of goes back to what Patrita was saying, is that, we have no control over it whatsoever. It's a third party that's going to come out and do the appraisal. So it's kind of like we're just all waiting to see what the appraisal comes back at. We don't have any. Now, you can contest an appraisal, right? You can send comps and appeal. Is that the correct word, Patrita? Yeah. We can appeal the appraiser, appraisal, but there's no guarantees that they'll come back with a change of value. So once again, that's why, we had a conversation offline, Jamil, that, you felt like, taking personal items down and, things of that nature, you shouldn't have to do that. But unfortunately, as, we live in a situation where it's a business move, I guess. That's the only way I could put it.
Gotcha. What about you, Steve? Cap it off. Oh, I'm sorry, Patricia. What you were saying? Go ahead.
I was going to say, actually, with Robert was right. Many years ago, I would even tell some of my listing agents, hey, how's your comps that you use so that I can help out, and that how you determine the value, and they would be open to it. Now I don't see that happening any longer. The last couple of years, it's more like what Tasha said, don't tell me how to do my job.
Wow.
Which makes no sense.
I've had only communication I've really had has been promising with appraisers, because I also flip homes, is that I give them a list of all the improvements.
Yeah.
And they're willing to accept that. And I've seen them copy and paste it and put it in the appraisal of all the things that's been done to it. I've been successful that way. But of course, that appraisal is not for me, it's for the buyer.
Sure.
Come and get the house.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
I try to at least, give them a heads up, like, hey, I want you to know what's been done to this house, and don't overlook it.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. What about you, Steve?
No, it's pretty much the same situation based on everything that everyone is saying. My situation is just a tad bit different, because I deal with a lot of lots on farmland, and so some of those appraisals have to stretch out quite a bit. So, but I agree with everyone else. It's, we have no control over it anymore, and that's just because of the history of what happened in the past with, these appraisers creating friendships and appraising these houses for a lot higher than what they were worth, and then the people pulling cash out, and and yeah, a lot of folks that went to jail behind that. So I don't necessarily know if it's a good thing, but it is definitely probably something that needed to happen.
Gotcha. Well, once again, thank you all very much. I know I said already thanked you once. I'm gonna thank you again.
Yeah.
and because I'm very honored, and like I said, this has been speaking
Can I
out.
say one more? Can I say one more thing?
You can say one more thing. Yes, little brother. You can say one more thing.
Just one more thing, and this goes back to the appraiser, that you were talking about. In estimated home performances, we've saw a 9% increase in home performances so far just this year, and we anticipate another increase of 5% next year and 4% the year after. So we shouldn't see a downturn in appraisals. We should see values continuing to rise the next 3 years.
Okay.
I just wanted to share that. That came from that was one of the economists, real estate economists. So
okay, gotcha. Thank you for sharing that. Appreciate that. Well, once again, like I said, thank you all very much. I appreciate it. This is Men Speaking Out. And please look for this podcast to be broadcast on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and every other podcast platform you can think of. We'll be there. So, hey, thank you very much. Appreciate you. God bless.
All right.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.